Hello, nature lovers. Do you love to read books like I do? I've always enjoyed reading books ever since I was a kid, especially books about nature. Unfortunately, as I get older, I find myself with less and less time to sit down with a good book. I've solved that problem with Audible. Audible allows you to listen to your favorite titles while you are driving, at the gym, taking a walk, wherever you are. With all the latest titles, you'll have quite a selection to choose from. And they have podcasts too. Start listening today with a free 30-day trial. To get your free 30-day trial, go to the show notes and click on the link. Happy listening. Welcome, friends, to the Nature Wander podcast. We've got spooky season. Yeah, that's right. It's October. Halloween's just around the corner, and this is the time when everyone starts getting in the spooky mood. Anyone got some really good movies they like to watch on Halloween? That's one of my traditions, is my wife and I will try to pick a scary movie. We both hate scary movies, especially the really scary ones. They freak us out, but it's a Halloween tradition. We find a really spooky, scary movie for Halloween, and we'll sit there and scare ourselves to death. But this year, we may have a little bit of trouble finding one because we don't want one that scares us too much. But anyhow, that's our tradition for Halloween. If you have a tradition, let me know. Go to my Instagram page and leave it in the messages, or drop a message to me through Facebook and let me know what your traditions are for Halloween. Well, I wanted to do a podcast since we're in October that is about a spooky, scary creature. Well, not really, but they have that reputation of being in all the scary movies and always being seen hanging out in the tree at nighttime over the cemetery. And I'm not talking about the vultures, although they have that reputation too, but I want to talk a little bit about owls today. Yeah, owls get that spooky, that scary, bad reputation, and the main reason is because, well, people seem to fear what they don't understand. And so because people don't understand owls, they don't totally get them because, hey, when are they out? We don't see them all the time. They're out at nighttime. You know, and scary things are out there at night. Yes, scary things are out at nighttime. So we make them scary. We believe that they're scary creatures and we fear them. Yeah, we fear what we don't understand. So anyhow, this has been going on for years and years. Back in the old days before electricity, what did people light their houses with at nighttime? It was dark. And they had candles, flickering candles, shooting shadows on the walls, flickering shadows. And yeah, scary. And you go outdoors at night and you see something up in the trees with big yellow eyes staring at you and you really can't see the body. Hey, that's a ghoul. That's a ghost. Or maybe you have an owl hanging out in an old barn, all white in color, hanging its head low, hissing at you, shaking its head back and forth, letting out a blood-curdling scream. Well, those barn owls, that was just their defense mechanism. But if you're in the old days, you thought that was a ghost. And that's where some of the ghost stories came from. So yeah, owls got a bad reputation. And actually, even before that, there was an owl known as a Strix. Strix! Yeah, Strix was a scary raptor witch that would prey on humans, especially kids, at nighttime. They had large eyes that would paralyze. Well, that was just a story. That's because people didn't understand what this big creature up in the trees with the large eyes were. Yeah, so this story of the Strix, that actually started to spread and people believed in it, and so they feared even going out at nighttime. They might become prey to the Strix. And the funny thing is, nowadays there's actually a genus of owl known as the Strix. So it kind of makes me laugh when I know that. But let's try to get rid of some of these myths about owls. Because if you understand them, you'll stop fearing them. Anyhow, owls are out at nighttime. Like I said, we call it nocturnal. Nocturnal means an animal that sleeps during the day, and they do all their hunting, all their activity in the dark at night. Now, not all owls are nocturnal. There are some owls that are diurnal. For instance, the snowy owl. Snowy owls are mostly up north, up in Canada, but we do get them coming down into the States during the winter time. I have seen snowy owls. I've been quite close to snowy owls, and back when I did rehab snowy owls, and when I used to do educational programs with non-releasable birds of prey, I have held a snowy owl. So yes, I am familiar with snowy owls, and they're diurnal. They're out during the daytime. They have to be. They're mostly spending their time up north, way up north, where the days will last all day, all night. Yet the sun's up constantly, hardly ever goes down. During certain times of the year, so they can't be sleeping during the day. They wouldn't get any hunting done. So they are considered diurnal or daytime owls. But yes, most other owls are nocturnal. Now, there are about 250 species of owls in the world. The largest of them is what we call the Blakiston's fish owl. Their wingspan is about 6 foot. That is huge. Now, the smallest owl is the elf owl, about 9-inch wingspan, very tiny birds. In the U.S., we have about 19 different species of owl. The smallest is that elf owl, so we do have the elf owl here in the U.S., and the largest in the U.S. is the great gray owl. Now, the great gray owl is found mostly in the northwest U.S. Now, owls are a bird of prey, a raptor. Now, what makes a raptor is that they are basically meat eaters. They eat animals, other animals, mostly mammals. So they need special tools. Some of those tools are what we call talons. Talons are like the claws, only they're different than claws. Claws are made of keratin. Same thing as our fingernails. They can break easily. Whereas talons are an extension of the bone, much harder than claws are. Those are used for catching their food and then squeezing tight, tiny little knives, digging down deep into the animal, killing that animal. Now, after they've caught the animal, they need to rip it into small pieces, and they do that with their curved beak. So all raptors have the talons and the curved beak. Now, like I said, they're eating small rodents. Sometimes they're eating larger prey. A lot of owls are scavengers. They find a roadkill deer. They're obviously not big enough to kill a deer, but they have no problem in ripping the meat into small pieces. So they will scavenge now and then. A larger owl could go after a fox, small deer maybe. They can go after cats. Yes, I've heard stories about cats disappearing, small dogs disappearing in people's yards. Fenced-in yard, it didn't get out, but it's not there anymore. Was it out at night? Yeah, it was an owl that got it. So they do go after other animals. Now, because owls are unlike hawks, they're out at nighttime, owls need a few extra tools for their hunting. They need to find their food in the dark and then sneak up on it. Yeah, they need to sneak up on the prey because the prey out at nighttime, like rabbits, huge ears. They're listening for danger. Danger is that owl. So these owls need to sneak up on their prey. They need to be very, very quiet. Yeah, they need to sneak up on it. How do they do that? Well, first of all, they have feathers covering their legs all the way down to the talons. Pretty much every part of their body is covered with feathers, which helps to buffer the wind, makes them quieter. I remember many years ago, my father, he used to hate the antenna on his car whistling. And if you're not familiar with the old style antennas, yeah, antennas used to be just like a big wire sticking out of the hood of your car, off on the passenger side usually. And when you're driving down the road too fast, it would start to vibrate and you could hear it kind of whistling or humming. So they made these little antenna socks. It was just cloth that fits over the antenna that would kind of break up the wind and it would quiet it. Yeah, my father had one of those for his antenna. Now, of course, antennas are built into the windshields or on top of the car now, but that's the old style antennas, and that's the same concept here. If the owl's legs were not covered with feathers, when they stick them out to grab that animal, it's only a second, but that's enough. There would be a little bit of a noise, and it would warn the prey animal, and the prey animal would probably get away. So they need to have those feathers to help buffer the sound, make them quieter. Now the wings are also specially designed for silent flight. The tips of the wings, if you look at an owl's wing, it almost looks like they went through hell. Yeah, the wings are really ruffled on the ends. They look disordered, but that's actually to help soften the wind current going through the feathers, and it makes them fly quieter. Oh, and the wings? Huge. Yeah, compared to the body size, the wings are much bigger than most other birds, compared to the size of the body. That way, they don't have to beat them as quick. Yeah, they can do slow beats and still stay up in the air. So as they're beating their wings very slowly, less air current, quiet flight. So everything about an owl is for flying quietly. Most of the time, I don't even want to call it flying, they'll glide down to their prey. They're not like a coyote running in real quick to grab it. They're not like a hawk who's trying to get there fast before it sees them coming. No, instead, they're sneaking up on their prey. And by sneaking up, they fly quietly and they glide. No sound. That animal didn't know it hit it. I actually had, many years ago, I had an owl fly over my head at nighttime. And I didn't even know it was there. All of a sudden, I see the shadow here. It scared the daylights out of me. I didn't hear it coming. I just saw it. So yeah, they do fly very silently. But how are they going to find their food in the dark? Well, they've got some extra special tools for that too. First of all, the eyes. Yeah, the eyes are huge. You can't call them eyeballs. They're not ball-shaped like ours and most other animals. They're not round. Instead, they're cone-shaped. If you look at an owl's eyes, you would see, of course, you'd have to get into the head to see this, but you would see that they actually go back into the head and get larger as they go back into the head, kind of like an ice cream cone where it's small on one end, big at the other. The part of the eye that you're seeing when you look at an owl is actually the smallest part. The eye gets larger as it goes back into the head. So that way they can have larger eyes, which means they can see better in the dark. Now, also in the eyes, they have rods and cones, and that's in most animals. Now, rods are made for seeing in dim light. The cones are for bright light. Now, in a human eye, most of the cones are towards the middle of the eye. The rods are in the outside of the eye. You ever go outside at nighttime and look up in the sky and you see a really faint star out of the corner of your eye? And when you look directly at it, it disappears? Try it sometime. And then when you look away, the star is back again. But when you look at it, it's gone. That's because the rods are around the outside of our eye. But in an owl, the rods and the cones are spread throughout the entire eye. And they have more rods in their eye than most other animals. That way they can see in the dark very easily because of those rods. Now, the last thing I want to talk about with the eyes is the nictitating membrane. Cats have it, dogs have it, a lot of birds have it too. Birds of prey have it, owls have it. A nictitating membrane is like a second eyelid. It's clear though. It covers the eye when they are hunting so that it protects the eye. It also helps to moisten the eye. But if you ever look at an owl and you see his eyes look kind of cloudy, white, that's because they closed the nictitating membrane. Now, because their eyes are stuck in one spot, they can't move them side to side. Oh, didn't I mention that? They're cone-shaped. We can turn our eyes from side to side because our eyes are a ball in a socket. They turn. But remember, an owl's eyes are cone-shaped. They can't turn. They're stuck, always looking straight forward. And yes, an owl's eyes are in the front of their heads, like most predators. But they're stuck, always looking in one direction. So how are they going to see what's going on behind them? Well, they actually can turn their heads. Now, when I was younger, I was told an owl can turn their heads all the way around. Not true. An owl can only turn their head about 270 degrees, about 3/4 of the way around. And the way they can do that is because they have 14 vertebrae in their neck. We have 7 in ours. I can go, well, on a good day, I can go a little bit further than my shoulder, or probably over my shoulder. Yeah, the humans cannot turn their heads very far because we only have 7 vertebrae in our neck. An owl has 14. Now, you may think, well, if he's turning his head 3/4 of the way around, isn't he going to crush the esophagus, the larynx, all the important stuff in the neck? Well, the vertebrae are specially designed so that when they do turn, they don't crush anything. Yeah, everything about an owl is specially designed for hunting at night. So he can see what's going on behind it. Well, why not just turn your body? Well, remember, he's out at nighttime. He's sitting on a tree branch. Maybe it's a full moon, silhouette of an owl. If he turns his entire body to look at the prey or the sound he heard, he'll make movement. And the animal will see it and it's be like, whoa, wait a minute here, I don't want to get eaten, and they'll run for cover. So that owl has to be invisible. He sits there. Maybe you can see a silhouette. But when he turns his head doesn't change the silhouette by turning it. It's a slow motion, but it's also the head almost looks like it's part of the body. It blends right in. No neck. I mean, there is a neck, but there's feathers there that make it look like it's part of the body. So when they turn their head, the shape of the silhouette doesn't change. That way, they're invisible. So he turns his head, sees what he wants, and then he goes after it. But why'd he turn his head? Well, he heard that animal. Their sense of hearing is phenomenal. Now, their ears, you can't see them. No, you can't see the ears because it's just a hole in the side of the head. If they had ears like other animals, like a rabbit, a mouse, a coyote, the ears sticking out of the side of the head, remember, this is a bird. He's flying. When he's flying, that would cause wind drag. So birds have just holes in the side of their head. So you'd think, well, they wouldn't be able to hear very well without that big funnel drawing the sound in. Well, you see, if you look at an owl, it almost looks like their face is flat and almost highlighted. That's what we call a facial disc. The feathers are specially designed around the eyes so that all the sounds coming into an owl's face get drawn into that facial disc. It's like a funnel. It draws all the sound back to their ears. Now, on an owl, one ear is lower on the head than the other. That's that they can do a really neat thing we call triangulation. Triangulation is where an owl, just by tilting his head from side to side, he's forming a triangle with his hearing. And when the sides of the triangle meet, or equalize, that's where the sound is coming from. So an owl can pinpoint exactly where a sound is coming from. I remember several years ago, I was walking out of my backyard, and it's a big open field, lots of snow on the ground. Sorry to mention that word already, but there was a lot of snow on the ground, and all of a sudden I saw a disturbance in the snow. So I walked over to it, and it was really fascinating because there were no footprints going up to that marking in the snow. There were wing marks there, rather large wing marks. There was a hole in the snow. There was blood around the hole too. There were no markings the day before, so I knew it happened in the middle of the night. So I knew it was an owl that came down. Now, the most interesting thing was the no tracks. Yeah, there were no footprints, not even mouse prints going up to that spot. It was just the wing marks and a hole into the snow. That mouse, or whatever it had gotten, probably a mouse, was tunneling under the snow. The owl never saw it. It heard it, pinpointed exactly where it was, went down for the kill. That's how they find their prey. Excellent hearing. They can't smell it. No. Owls, most birds, very, very poor sense of smell. They can't smell what's in front of their face. There are a few birds like turkey vultures that can smell stuff really well. But most birds have a very poor sense of smell, including the owls. So they can't smell their prey. They're depending on their sense of sight and their sense of hearing. That's how they find their prey. Then they spread their wings, glide in for the kill. All of this allows them to hunt at nighttime. Now, when you're out at nighttime and you hear what you think is not in the morning, that cooing in the morning, what a lot of people mistake for owls, that's a mourning dove. mourning. Sounds like they're in mourning and grief. But if you go out at nighttime and you hear different sounds out there, that could be an owl. Not all owls go hoo, hoo, like everyone thinks. That is actually the great horned owl, the 7 hoots of the great horn. This is actually what the great horned owl sounds like. Now, another common owl you might hear, though, is the "Who Cooks for You" owl. Well, he actually got that name because of his call. It's the barred owl, B-A-R-R-E-D, barred owl. And this is what a barred owl sounds like. And I mentioned the ghost stories with the barn owl, B-A-R-N, the barn owl. This is where those stories came from. Listen to this call. And one of my favorite little guys, very common in my neck of the woods in the Northeast, and you'll find them all in the eastern U.S., is the eastern screech owl. Kind of sounds like a miniature horse calling. I get them in my yard all the time. I hear them. This is what the eastern screech owl sounds like. So those are some of the more common owls that you'll find in the Northeast, eastern U.S. You will find some of them in the western part of the United States as well. There's some really great sources, allaboutbirds.com. I'll put some of the links in the show notes for where you can find some of the owl calls out there. Well, it is the fall. I've got nets set up in the woods. Now I'm going to go out and see if I caught any saw-whet owls in my nets. Yeah, I do owl banding this time of year. So I'm up half the night catching owls in my nets. So I got to get out there, check my nets. I hope you enjoyed the podcast and learning about owls. Hope you understand now more about owls so they won't scare you. And remember, we fear what we don't understand. So now that you understand owls, hopefully you don't fear them. Hopefully you never did. But anyhow, owls are pretty cool. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you did, make sure you rate and review it. Invite your friends for more episodes. And I will see you again next week. Be sure to visit my website, naturewanderer.org. My Facebook page, The Nature Wanderer. I'm also on Instagram at The Nature Wanderer, underscores in between each of the words. Check out the show notes. You can support the podcast through Patreon or through Ko-Fi. You can also get some great Nature Wanderer merch for these chilly evenings. I've got awesome sweatshirts that you can purchase. And all of that is in the show notes. It's also linked from my website. Have a great evening, a great day, and above all, keep exploring the nature around you. Hey, did you know that plastic is produced with oil, a fossil fuel that pollutes the environment? Wouldn't it just be awesome if we could live our lives without plastic? Well, there's a company that wants to help you do just that. Life Without Plastic. They sell products that will reduce or eliminate your dependence on plastic. They have a large selection of products like toothbrushes, food storage containers, drinking straws. And the best part is that they're also very reasonably priced. So what are you waiting for? Check out all these great plastic-free products and help save the planet. Just click on the link in the show notes to find out more and to start your journey to being plastic-free.